so much for coming. So this is the first time that we are having the blockchain meetup here. And I would also like to thank Digital Eatery or Microsoft for hosting us here. I think it could be a pretty good place to host the meetup, so maybe we'll be here more often. Certainly host up. So we're gonna have two talks tonight, and one is coincidentally is also by a guy from Microsoft, although this is kind of a random. So Peter is a technical evangelist working in Munich, and he's going to speak about Bletchley. So we want to see the podcast with Marley Gray, who's developing that about Bletchley. So it's quite an interesting project, how to, let's say, maybe extend or use the blockchain context in a different way. And afterwards we have Oussema, who's going to speak about Bitdinars, which is a project for how to use cryptocurrency in Tunisia and bring some of the wonderful benefits of this technology to people of Tunisia. And yes, thanks so much to Ryan as well for once again live streaming the event. And if anybody has any questions, we'll do a Q&A after each talk, and otherwise enjoy the meetup. And drinks you can just order whatever at the bar, and okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. So now I have two mics, the one for you, the one for the internet. Thank you that you are all here. My name is Peter Kirchner. I'm working at Microsoft Germany, doing a lot of stuff in Microsoft Azure, and security is some of my hobbies, and blockchain topics too. So today I have the honor to speak about the project Bletchley, what's currently the working title, about a new framework we are currently working on. So, and for some of you who don't know the houses there and maybe the Bletchley, who knows what Bletchley is? Okay. For the other ones, what is the majority right now? It's a place in England, and it was this place played a key role in World War II about encrypting, or better decrypting Enigma. So this is a little bit the pun about this name. So typically I speak about what's blockchain and what's the big deal about this, but today I thought I change this. Because we are here at the blockchain meetup, so I can save a lot of time. Because mostly we stay here explaining people what the blockchain is, and then what we are doing with this. So I directly go into the part of the smart contracts. So you have to think that we typically go all this way through how the blockchain works from Bitcoin, where you have just properties and values, and then go to what someone calls blockchain 2 with Ethereum, where you have additionally smart contracts. And this is a step where we want to go in with Project Bletchley. So the smart contract, I think everyone knows about smart contracts in blockchain, especially, for example, in Ethereum, where you have the possibility to add some business logic to the blockchain. So, and what you see here is that you have some asset where you have your code, your smart contract, you have your ID, your owner, in this case, and we want to extend this with Project Bletchley. Okay, typically we have some different types of blockchains. The public ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the other ones. You have the private ones where you have only some companies have access, or some members or whatever. And you have the permissioned ones where you can open it to some special people forming some kind of community, and putting that together, the ones which are not completely open or not completely private or whatever, where you have certain parties in the game, are what we currently call the consortium blockchains. That means there are some companies or some parties who have some business or some transactions or whatever they want to do in common. But how life is, they don't trust each other. So maybe they want to have transactions where everyone can audit or can see transparently what the other parties are doing. You know, that's the reason why blockchain is interesting for many people. And the same you have at the business level with some companies or with companies. So that is the main part where Bletchley kicks in to help to improve the consortium blockchains. There's different consensus approaches, you know for sure. Proof of work is the one that is the most famous about Bitcoin. And there are other ones like proof of stake, which have different consensus, where you have to trust some kind of entity. So, you know, there is the steps down to other, not algorithms, but maybe approaches, how you can avoid this energy and CPU consuming proof of work. So, but this is not important for us. That is just for the full context. What for us is interesting is the type of consortium blockchains. So, why is this interesting for us? Because if you speak with companies, they have already business logic in place. They have their systems in place, their business logic, their servers that do some kind of stuff. And they're interested in blockchain. I'm working with partners already here in Germany. And currently it is mostly not about technology. It is mostly about what they can do with blockchain, because they have heard about it just now. So they want to know what they can do. And of course, how they can integrate it with their existing systems and their existing processes, and maybe also with their existing management and operations, whatever. So this is a place where we want to support with Project Bletchley. So we want to help to integrate with existing systems. If the company has some security operations already in place, there should also be a way in integrating this. Operation management, of course, privacy. Yeah. Privacy is also interesting at the smaller blockchains. If you speak about consortium blockchains, you have not this thousands of nodes or not the thousands of members. You have maybe just hundreds of nodes or maybe less. Yeah, it depends what companies are working together. And also you maybe want some kind of privacy in there. That means you maybe want encryption in there, or you want maybe not your smart contracts visible to everyone. As you know, if you have a smart contract currently in the blockchain, it's just bytecode. You can see what's happening there. That is not always what companies want. So there's something to do. And identity and key management, of course. We are doing a lot with cloud. Maybe you know, we have a product called Microsoft Azure. So we have also the possibility to do some key management. And that's also important if you're doing, or if you're placing your nodes in the cloud. You're always thinking about how to minimize the risk of compromising your systems. So we don't want keys that are important, and if you have a node running, you have private keys on those nodes. It's better not to have the keys on those systems. So there we have also some ideas or solutions. And of course, there are always business guys in the whole story, so they want to analyze everything. Yeah? Doing some analyzing how is this used, who is using this, etc., etc. So So we have something that we want to extend, blockchain 2.0 extended to blockchain 3.0. That what you see here is we have with 2.0 we had a state machine plus code, as well as the smart contracts, and with our idea of blockchain 3.0 we want to introduce a concept called cryptlets. And don't go panic, but that's the idea of doing something off the chain. So, and how this is possible, I want to show. So, here you see some architecture about how your solution could be. In the bottom, you have some kind of infrastructure. In our case, it's Azure. Then you have this is hidden by the different product logos. You have your blockchain, your different blockchains, and that you could use, like maybe Ethereum or Hyperledger or maybe a Bitcoin blockchain, whatever. And over there, we introduce a new layer. This is a middleware. This is where we want to improve or help with the just mentioned challenges. Yeah? I have just shown you like identity, key management, integrating systems, etc. And over there, on the top, you have the solutions that work on this backend. And you see here some product logos because what we don't want to do is inventing a new blockchain. That is what we don't want to do because there are already blockchains out there, and we don't want to invent our own because there are companies and communities who are creating blockchains and creating the blockchains or improving them for special cases. There are maybe blockchains that have to work with proof of work maybe because it's necessary, but maybe there are also blockchains who need a higher transaction rate, whatever. And the requirements can be quite different, and we cannot fulfill them all. So our idea is more, let the others create the different blockchains to meet their requirements, and we just want to extend their blockchains through some kind of interface, adapter, you name it like you want, to different solutions. The main important thing is this concept about cryptlets. You see other things like identity, key services, privacy encryption, etc. But the most important thing is that we extend the off-chain computation via cryptlets. For the other challenges you see here, we have also some solutions, but those are not so difficult because there are already solutions in place. But the most difficult one is, of course, doing computation outside of the chain. So I can show you Bletchley version 1. And now there comes a place where I have to say it's a lot of ideas. A lot of things are not ready today. So we are in a very early phase. We have some private previews. We are already working with some companies together to improve those. We are partnering with a lot of communities and companies who are working with blockchains or creating blockchains, and to integrate with them. So here's an example for the Ethereum consortium blockchain. And if I just show you in the demo, we are also partnering with a lot of other companies and communities. And for example, for the Ethereum blockchain, this is one part of the Bletchley version 1. This is the one part which is not about cryptlets. This is a part about just creating the infrastructure to help the companies to development, to go into the topics, and to create the infrastructure they need to develop. Because I said in the beginning, many companies in Germany are, blockchain is quite new for them, and they are starting at the very beginning. They need to see where they they don't know how to start, or maybe they know how to start, but they need the infrastructure. They need, of course, some blockchains to develop with. They need some infrastructure for their developers, etc. And of course, we as a cloud provider are able to provide infrastructure. So that is the part that is already mostly ready, which we have in Azure. And I show you then also in a demo. So this is Ethereum consortium blockchain. There you have 2 different deployment modes. So you can go through a wizard, and we call it an Azure Resource Manager template, where you can enter some parameters, and then the platform deploys automatically the cluster, the nodes, the network, the storage you need for the deployment you have chosen. Those templates, of course, are not developed by our own. We do those templates together with the blockchain distributors or blockchain companies or communities. So this one is then together with Ethereum. So I can show this to you. You have seen that it's possible to do small deployments or big deployments. Just you have seen a little bit of feeling how this could be. Of course, I have created one before to make sure that I'm in time, but I just want to show you how easy could it be for someone to deploy this infrastructure. So if you're in the Azure portal, you create a new resource in the search, like just search for blockchain, and then you get different templates that we're currently offering that are regarding blockchain. So you see the first one, for example, there's Ethereum consortium blockchain for development of apps, Strato blockchain, or DevTest, say some words later, or you have what's interesting, maybe Truffle for your DevOps requirements, etc. And those you can just easily deploy to your infrastructure. You can deploy it for your whole team. You can deploy it for each individual developer. And I have just mentioned the DevTest part. So you see this here. You have 2 different ways to do this in Azure. So one is just deploy some kind of those templates in your Azure subscription, and you have it there. But there's also something called DevTest. That is some kind of isolated environment. That means your admin or your boss, whoever, can say, okay, I give to my developers some quota, how much money they can burn, or how long their solution can run, or the solution should start in the morning and stop in the evening to save money, etc. And you can limit the templates they want to use. This is stuff you can do. So you can control quite well how you want to go into development with your teams. But just now, I just create the template directly because I'm my own boss in my subscription here. Just choose this template. You can read all the text there, of course, later. And then you can go through the wizard. So you need some resource prefix. I call it just ASDF. Can enter a password. It's difficult with one hand. So select your subscription, create a resource group, test, shows your location, it shows West Europe. You can of course choose the region you want. If you want to create it globally, you can of course choose one of the different regions. I choose just West Europe. And then you can define your network. So your Ethereum network. So how many consortium members you have in this for this cluster or for this blockchain. I make it big. I won't deploy it because it's too big for my quota. How many mining nodes you want to have, for example, and there you already see how many instances this template will already deploy. At this situation, it would automatically deploy 180 instances of size you have chosen, and fully configured to work together. You can choose other things, and there you enter your password, etc. I have done this before, just much smaller, to be honest, in the smallest one. Yeah. And there you have then a standard Ethereum deployment with different resources. I've just it's untested. I've just created it just before the talk. Just have to get the public IP address here. You have seen there were, maybe not seen, I can tell you, there were 4 instances only in this cluster. I have here the IP address. So there's a copy button, and can just go to the admin page here, and created it maybe 20 minutes ago, and this was no work. So if you have someone working with, maybe you are working with also with some companies who want to start with blockchain, it's very easy to set up an environment for them. I would say they even can do it on their own after going through this wizard. You can of course do everything scripted. Yeah, in Azure you can do everything scripted, and maybe if you want to repeat it, but this would be the way going through the portal. And maybe I don't have to show you. I can of course then go to my wallet here and just enter. Yeah, I can do this. Just enter this IP address here, and can connect to this one. I have this that I have just created. Connect to my custom one, custom RPC. Choose my new one I have just created here. Save. Need my password. I changed this after the talk. So this is quite new. There's no ether, and I could give it some to start my tests, to test to test my smart contracts as I need something in the beginning, and I think not long, maybe some seconds or minutes. I have my ether there, and I can play around. I can send it to my other accounts in this private blockchain I just have created. It needs maybe 10-15 minutes to set up, to run the instances. So that's the reason I have done it before, so I don't have to wait. Or you can just test your smart contracts with that. Okay, so going back.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Question. Why would you need a mining node in a consortium chain?
That depends on the parties in the consortium. We don't make any regulations. So this is the one.
The consensus algorithm is proof of work in this test chain.
In this one?
Yeah.
I think so. I'm not sure, because the main point, it's there could be different blockchains. This don't always have to be the Ethereum. It could be another one. Maybe we want to. They come later into the marketplace, and we offer the infrastructure for those. So we want just to make an open platform. That's the main part. And the parties, they want to create some kind of consortium blockchain, can choose the blockchain they want, and can adapt it to their needs. So if they maybe have also evaluation of this blockchain, maybe with other consensus algorithm, they could do it. But many companies need a starting point. So, but this is a good question. But this is really important because we want to be the infrastructure for those blockchains. This is the one part where we partner with many blockchains, and the other part is then creating this middleware. There are two different parts right now. So, this is now the second part about the cryptlets, where some documentation and some part of the SDK is already published on GitHub, but it's not finished. So that is why we need those cryptlets is about. Currently we have just have the oracles, and the oracles are also not. They have some limitations, and some of those limitations are just mentioned here. Maybe if you have start a smart contract, maybe we need the real time, or we want to react on events, yes, on events that happen on the outside of the chain. Here's the example with that some oil hits some level of price, or maybe we want the code execution in a straightforward way. It depends on the blockchain when your smart contract really gets executed. If you are in the Bitcoin blockchain, for example, and it makes no sense, but if you're in the Ethereum blockchain, it could be that your smart contract gets maybe executed now, or maybe just in some minutes, or maybe even a little bit later. So there's no way to say it is at a certain time, or it is always in a minute, etc. The other things may be interesting, but I don't think for today. Versioning should be easier. We will see. This is maybe interesting for some companies that your code of the smart contract is not visible. So you can offload your code to a cryptlet which is outside of the blockchain, and this could be to protect your IP of your code. So the idea, okay, to go this over, the idea is to have those cryptlets. Here also how those cryptlets could be even used more via a marketplace. That means we have already a marketplace in place, yeah? And somebody could create some interesting smart contracts here, which go maybe to other places over a cryptlet or not. It makes no difference. And they could put there some interesting stuff. So here again the differentiation. Oracle, you don't always know, is it secure? Is the host maybe compromised or not? You cannot really tell. So the idea is to use this cryptlet, and the idea about this is that you have some kind of tested host. And this is the main point where it gets difficult, because you have to trust the place where the code runs. Because if you cannot trust the place, you cannot trust the whole transaction or the blockchain in the end. So this is the most difficult part, and this is where the part we are currently mostly working. The idea goes into the direction using trusted computing. That means using the secured environments from the different CPU vendors to create secured code execution environments. So, and currently we are going into the direction only to use tested hosts in 3 different places. The first one are Azure, where you can get a tested host, and the second one is Azure Stack. That means your private cloud with your own hardware, and the third one is just for dev tests, is a local PC. So, and when you create a smart contract, you still have smart contracts, but they are able to go out of the blockchain using crypto delegates. If you're in it or initializing those smart contracts, you are assigning which attested host belongs to those smart contracts and already exchanging private or public keys. And this is a way you create something that's called trusted envelope, because if you're doing computation at the outer place, at the cryptlet, the results are signed with the private key of the attested host, and the smart contract can check back. That's the idea, to create a trusted envelope that the transaction is transparently auditable. That means that you can see afterwards what were the keys of the hosts that have executed the code. So that means that even if we have this concept of attested hosts, there's always the possibility that it's not trusted anymore because there has something happened. Yeah? And that's the reason why with each execution of a smart contract, the current keys and signatures are stored with the smart contract execution. So comparing cryptlet versus oracles, maybe some are interesting. Which are most interesting? Maybe I think for today it's not so interesting because you already know how to use oracles. But if someone is new, it could be interesting to use cryptlets because they have a standard environment for their development of their cryptlets. They can use the language they are used to. Yeah? They can use maybe Java or .NET or whatever to develop their cryptlets. They have an environment that is a development environment that they can use. They may be adapted to their what they have already in place, and of course SDK, etc. So there are two different use cases we see currently. The one is the event-driven. That means that a smart contract can subscribe to an event. This is an example we have seen some minutes ago with the oil, where it hits some price. That means the smart contract can subscribe, and then the smart contract can be raised by the cryptlet. This is a new scenario. And the other one is control. That means that the code is pushed outside of the blockchain to the cryptlet, maybe to protect the IP of the code. And there will be different VMs depending on what language you're choosing. Then we have two different kinds of cryptlets, what we see currently. The one is the utility cryptlet, and the other one will be the contract cryptlet. The utility one is just to have some common methods you or developers will use often, like maybe mathematical operations, encrypting operations, or getting information from certain places, whatever. This is some kind of vision because it's not what's already in place. So that is the concept what we have about the different cryptlets there. The other one will be then the contract one. That is the one where you have some part or all of the code in your cryptlet and on the attested host. Oh, one too fast. Okay, there is no envelope. But you have there your contract cryptlet on your attested host, which will be then run there. This is just to show that we want to be open about the different languages that you can choose there, that on the tested host can run different VMs that execute the code of the cryptlet. Can be more just an example how it could be. So going back to the architecture we have seen, we had this infrastructure layer where you have your different blockchains, and which we want the developers to use. Then we have here crypto delegates, and this is the part where we have where we already work with the different companies and communities to create those crypto delegates, because this one has to be adapted to the blockchain you're using. This one is then able to go to your attested host. This is the one about the cryptlets. Then we have other parts about the middleware, where we don't really have to create new stuff for everything, because we have already different technologies in place. For identities, for example, we have already Azure AD, which is a directory which supports authentication, and also strong authentication via MFA. We have services for key management. That's what we call Key Vault. In the back of Key Vault is just an HSM, meaning a hardware security module. Most people know what a HSM is, right? Who knows this? It's hardware which goal is to protect your private keys, and those hardware better should die before they give you private keys, and that's the reason that you also do your cryptographic operations in the Key Vault, in the hardware security module, because you never get back your private keys. And those also we have in Azure. They are quite costly. We use in Azure the one from Thales. Maybe you know the company. You often see if you have HSM, you already have maybe some of them. Or if you're using an ATM, you also should often see the logo Thales on the ATMs. So, and in Azure you can of course use those devices per key, so it's not quite so expensive. And other services we have in place already for our other cloud solutions we can reuse here for blockchain solutions. And I mentioned the stuff about analyzing stuff that we can cover by using Cortana Analytics and or Power BI. But this is something that is open to your ideas and fantasy, what you want to analyze there. The solutions are there where you can collect data and analyze it in real time or not real time, how you like it. So you want it, of course, globally, you can do it, but it should not be an Azure pitch, so I skip this one. So here again, that was some minutes too early, where I want to mention the idea about a marketplace for the smart contracts that we want also have in place. Someone invents a smart contract with some fantastic stuff, and other companies can reuse them. Don't have to invent them on their own, but pay use, for example. So that's the idea here, and to have this marketplace in place. So many companies are working together with. Make it faster here. Some of them if you go on the GitHub page, just search on Google for Project Bletchley and GitHub, you should find it very fast. And there you have the latest stuff, what we are doing there. So that's the part about the dev test part I already have mentioned. I think this is really interesting if you're working in teams or working with companies who want to start with that, because they have always the feeling they can go bankrupt by using the cloud. And that's the way they can limit themselves and work in a secure environment, and also their developers or employees. It goes really fast. Even if you are used to work with cloud, even for me, some 2 weeks ago, I have created a test lab for a customer and had forgotten to delete it over the weekend, and the week after I had to ask to apologize at my boss side. But this happens, and with the step test, you can limit it in the beginning. So where to go? There are different places. Azure.com blockchain. This is where the product is explained, and the product is currently not the dev part. That means if you go to the blockchain site on Azure.com, it's all about the infrastructure. That means the templates I have shown you just in the demo. This is all what is already there. And if you want to know about more about Bletchley, you should go to GitHub and follow Marley Gray. He's the product manager of this product, what is currently the name Bletchley, and he drives the development of this product and also publishes most of the stuff on GitHub. So, and with that, I want to close. That is something which is new to the companies I mentioned, who are new to blockchain and to get ideas. After that, I have a great collection of scenarios I don't want to show just now. I have also adjusted in German, but I could translate it. But now, typically, just for you to know, you are all doing a lot of stuff in blockchain, I think, already. But now, typically, it starts to think about what companies can do with blockchain and what the ideas are. And this is honestly just currently where we spend a lot of time, because many companies want to do something with blockchain and don't really know what exactly, and what they even also don't know is how to make money with this. So that's all currently the topics we are at the ISVs. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and now we have time for questions?
Sure.
Okay, we have time for questions.
Produce the same, it must be deterministic, right?
Yeah.
The blockchain would fork, or the blocks would be discarded because they are invalid.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do I have to repeat the question? Yeah. The question is about how to get consistent results if different nodes call the cryptlet, right? Yeah. There could be inconsistent results if you have volatile data that you call via this use case control. So currently, and you know it's all in the beginning, the recommendation is for volatile data not to use the control use case, but to use the event-driven use case. That means that if you want to have current data, this event should write the data to the blockchain like you have it currently with the Oracle, but with the differentiation that you have the data from a tested host. So the gain is that you know that the written data is from a trustworthy source. So this is how to accomplish this challenge, because you're right, if you have in this consortium blockchain maybe 20 or 30 nodes, and they call the cryptlet maybe at just a little bit different time, you could have inconsistent results. Yeah.
Because the problem, I think, is even bigger now that I think, because the temptation to call an API in this C# or whatever code will be kind of strong, right? So you have to prohibit this because you just said you have to put the data in the blockchain. That is a strange thing. But if you're calling an API, you have to put the whole DB inside the blockchain and query, right?
And that's the reason.
And the second question is that the blockchain has to be verifiable over time. Even things happened 1 year ago has to be re-verified if needed, right? So if those system goes offline, someone changes the code, and the code is out of the blockchain.
Yeah, as for the second part, it's the same answer. That it's better to have the written results already in the blockchain. That would be address the second part of your question. And the first one was, what was the first one?
The system may go offline, or someone may change the code.
Yeah, exactly. That is the reason why this is currently as a primary approach for consortium blockchain, because if you would be really open, then it's difficult to trust again. Because here you have, if you're in a consortium blockchain, you have this outsourced code of the chain, and of course, you have to trust this code. That means you have once this code, the parties of this consortium have to agree on this one, and then you sign this one. Better, yeah, and after you have signed it, you check back that it's not changed what you have checked before it got signed. But that's the reason why this is currently an approach for a consortium blockchain, because there it could be possible to do this agreement on the cryptlet. That could not, maybe, it's difficult, yeah, just never say never, but for a really public blockchain, I think it would be really difficult to have agreement on this code outside of the blockchain. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Was there?
Maybe also, just to weigh in on this very quickly. I mean, I think you could have, right, like you register maybe the code on the blockchain, and then it gets executed off the blockchain, the results get written back into the blockchain, and potentially you could have a bunch of different parties that all run it off-chain, and then if there's a discrepancy, there can be some sort of arbitration process, so that you have sort of like a multi-sig on the execution side. Does that make sense?
My name is Ralph. I have some questions about which different products, blockchain products you have on the marketplaces. Product means can I install on Azure as a real one example, multi-chain hyperledger or everything else? What different Bitcoin blockchain core products you are supporting as Microsoft? And the second question is, how can we use it with your identity management together with different blockchains? Is this connected or isn't it?
Good. For the first part of the questions, I can show you the current selection of the templates we have already there. That is what we already have in place. That means we have partners with those companies to have those templates there. What we have here are currently, you see, is compute. That means if you start those templates, you get initialized VMs, one or many, like in the Ethereum example, which pre-configured environment. Those environments are created by the offering company you see here. For example, if you see here Ethereum consortium blockchain means there is the publisher Microsoft. That means we have here worked with Ethereum, but we are the main contact for support them. If there's another publisher, then the main contact for support is then regarding the appropriate company whose name is there. And of course, we want to extend this. This takes some time, We are currently in talks with other companies, with other blockchains, but we need to get those ready. That means creating those templates that are easy to use and they don't failing. So that is the current part what we are doing on this infrastructure side. This is hopefully answering the first part of your question. Okay, and the second part is how to interact with the different other services. And I don't want to say just Azure services because, well, I have mentioned, of course, all the Azure services here. But to be honest, if you're running your code in the scriptlet, you have seen that different VMs. We have seen Java, .NET, we have seen the Ethereum VM, for example. Maybe there are later other VMs. Take, for example, the .NET one, because it's the one where I'm most familiar with. There you can use services from anywhere, if you like. It depends on your use case. So, of course, there you can call Azure services, but as Azure works, you can, of course, use any service there because it's just a VM. In this case, the different thing is it's an attested VM where you have a special environment where you have the secure execution of the code. But in the end, it's a VM in Azure, which has access to the outside world where you can call services. If you use, for example, Azure AD, as this would be then no difference if you use it for a cryptlet or for a standard cloud service. So Azure AD has REST APIs if you're not using the SDK, but you could also use for the typical languages like .NET, Java, JavaScript, Ruby, whatever. We have SDKs to use our Azure services. So that would be how you develop against those services. But that would be not a special thing about this blockchain topic. It would be how the standard topic, how you develop services or how you use our services. So for Azure AD, we have an SDK for the most of the languages. For the other services, we have also SDKs. And if you want a service from another provider, cloud provider, whatever, look at their SDKs or documentation. But to go back maybe to your question, is this code a new language which is run there, and from there on is a standard code development?
Maybe I have two questions.
Maybe it's not answered, I think.
Right? My question is, how long do you are familiar with blockchain?
Pardon?
How long do you are familiar with blockchain technology?
How you log?
How long?
How long are you familiar with it? Since how long are you familiar with blockchain?
This
Ah.
was not the answer to my question, but it's okay. You can discuss it.
Okay.
Sorry. So my name is George. Hi. Maybe I have two questions. Did you think about, I mean, this terribly looks to me like a single point of failure. So did you think about having like a swarm or something like that of cryptlets running the same thing so that me and my business partner can both be sure that they are executing the code on their machines? They might also see the contract, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But at least the rest of the world doesn't see it. Scenario like that. And then the second thing, if I see that and I'm relying on a trust computing module, stuff like that, why do I actually need the blockchain at all? Because then it's not peer-to-peer anymore. I can run the whole functionality centralized, can agree on the software, and I have no need to have peers. I just run everything in this one Azure node, and actually I run a lot more efficient that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. First one, yes. There's already documentation for this project Bletchley. There's the idea to run those scriptlets on different nodes at the same time, and they on their own make their own consensus then about the right result. So yes, there is the idea of doing this with the cluster. Currently, not defined what kind of cluster. Could be any kind of microservice cluster or not microservice cluster, whatever. But the idea is there to run this cryptlet on different nodes. And that those different nodes that run the same cryptlet make their own consensus before they have the final answer for the return value. Yeah. The second one, why do you need a blockchain at all here? Good question. Is this some kind of mixed reality, I would say, yeah? There are parties who want to work with each other, and maybe they don't trust their transaction on each other. Maybe take a little example. You have maybe a company who transports stuff, and you have at different places different parties who have to make checkpoints about the stuff you have transported. Yeah? Maybe you have the one who sells the stuff, puts it in the car, then you drive maybe to the first border where you have the customs, and go to the next one, etc. Yeah, you see, and you want to make sure that you have all over the place. You have maybe the same stuff, or you have never left the right environment for your stuff. Maybe you have a cooling car, kind of. Maybe there, in this place, you need something to. No, I have to think. I talk about an example. You need some information from the outside, or yeah, maybe you can work together. What was some information from the outside which is not currently in the blockchain? Yeah, and it is. There are still things where you gain something. This is transactions. That is checkpoints that you have your stuff over the certain places where you check in. You have still the same stuff in your car, but that is already a gain for those parties because they don't trust each other. But maybe there is some information they need from the outside additionally for I don't know the business logic.
Okay, that's the Oracle case, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
understand for Oracle. Okay.
Yeah, but with the gain that is not an untrusted one, that is the gain that is from an attested host. That's the idea that you have more. It is always just more. Yes, it is never 100%. It is just you have more security about the values you get into the blockchain, yeah, compared to the Oracle. Yeah.
That I understand.
Yeah.
Or another example, though, when you have, let's say you have some smart contract on Ethereum, but it wants to do certain type of computation that just is too expensive to do on Ethereum, right? So you can basically outsource it, and the result gets written back into the smart contract. And I think there's lots of use cases where this kind of thing will make sense. And especially when, as you start having interactions between, on-chain and off-chain, or needing privacy, things that you don't see exactly what process is being used. Like let's say you have a proprietary mechanism for calculating the interest rate, and so you want to make sure that, okay, it is signed by the party that owns that mechanism, and the result is written back to the blockchain. So.
Yeah, good idea. Just to extend the example, maybe you have some food on there, and some company has a special algorithm to calculate the food is still good, yeah, which is their secret, how to say it. Yeah, maybe all parties can agree on using this third company on calculating that the food is still good, and it makes sense to still ride to the end of the goal, yeah, and not throw it away on the road.
Okay, let's do one more question. Anybody have another question? All right. Then, well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Please have a seat.
Hello. Okay. Can we start? Okay, dankeschön. So, hi everybody, my name is Oussema Settala. I've been coming to the meetup since like 2 years, and I'm very pleased to be here to introduce our idea. So, I hope you like these pictures. They were custom made for us by a friend of mine. He's Tunisian, and these are taken in Tunisia. It represents some contrast in Tunisia between poverty and some organization.
I think you need to speak a bit louder and clearer.
Okay. Is it better? Okay. So I'm here to introduce Vink. It stands for Digital Banking Solutions for Financial Inclusion. So basically we will not talk about blockchains, but rather talk about banking, digital banking, and more about digital currencies. So if you have a blockchain, if you want to solve a problem with the blockchain, you better have a double spending problem and a tamper-proof entries. If you have these two problems, blockchain is the best idea suited to solve these problems. And digital currency based on blockchains are the new generation of currency or as software. So if you have paper money printers have to stop being, they would be obsolete at some point. We would have to replace it by software currency, which will be digital currency based on blockchains. So to introduce cryptocurrency software, the first thing we have to say that it's not predating the banking industry. So currency software is not against banks or with banks. It's just software which can be handled by banks, and we will demonstrate how. So a centralized cryptocurrency is what represents a digital IOU. If you're familiar with IOUs or fiat currency. This is Jeff Garzik. He's one of the first contributors to the Bitcoin. And if you don't have the keys, it's an IOU. So a Bitcoin is a perfect IOU in the digital format. It's like paper money, but in a digital format. Then the banking infrastructure. So how it would influence the banking infrastructure if we adapt cryptocurrencies against what we have now. The idea is that, if you don't read German, the idea is that more banks are being dematerialized and everything is going fully digital. So the example is ING, but also and number 26, which are fully digital banks. And with the new infrastructure they would have, because they're basically hiring more technical people and less people in branches, which makes sense. They're becoming more and more technology companies. They would have to understand how to handle such technologies. So one of the aspects of it, which was mentioned, was the cryptographic keys management. How and which way should these keys be managed? And one of the best practices is basically Xapo. So you have here what we call the next generation of banks. It's on offline encrypted servers, which are called cold storage also. Okay. The second aspect is the new use cases of this programmable money or digital money. So basically, we can use money in different ways because it will be programmable. So one of the first aspects is electronic currency exchange. So we would be able to exchange money faster. You don't have to go to the counter if you go to Japan or if you go to the US and so on and so forth. Shapeshift is the best example. So you can switch the currency that you're using with a click. It's as easy as Shapeshift. Okay. And other use cases, nano payments, for instance, Satoshi Pay makes nano payments. We have machine-to-machine payments. We also, these are technological use cases, but we have functional use cases. We will explain that later. So it's an internet native money. In the sense, it's resilient, it's frictionless, and it's highly available. In the sense that, why should we be able to send a Facebook message instantly or an email and not be able to send money as quickly as a Facebook message or an email when we have the infrastructure and everything is built around this? Okay, and it's highly inclusive, which is the biggest part and the most important part for my company, because we are using cryptocurrency not because we like cryptocurrencies in general, because it has a real value for the people in Tunisia and elsewhere, which, for example, in Africa, 80% of the people are unbanked. So why do you want to unbank them, or why do you want to provide cryptocurrency technology? Okay, R&D, so research and development. At Vink, we adopt Bitcoin, and we understand Bitcoin as a digital money protocol. Bitcoin can be used for us for many use cases, just without connecting to it. So you can have micro remittances, or you can have other use cases which you cannot do with the bank now. For instance, I have my brother living in Canada, and now I can send him money up to 10 euros or 5 euros in 10 minutes or 30 seconds, depends on how many confirmations you want. And it's not possible for now. So if I had to do a transfer from Germany to Canada, it would take 5 days. Why Bitcoin? Because it's the most secure blockchain for now, but it's also with the biggest ecosystem, and people, you have many companies working on the security part, but also many startups. So it's a complete ecosystem, which is different from, let's say, Ethereum. Bitcoin is one single task protocol. It's just for money. Ethereum is for smart contracts and so on and so forth. Okay. Examples of Bitcoin banking, we have like EY in Zurich, they already have Bitcoin ATMs. Ripple, BitPay, Satoshi Pay, they do nano payments. Bitwala and Abra are specialized in Bitcoin-based remittances. So if you use them, you can basically send up to 5 euros or 1 euro to any other country in Mexico, and we want to do this in Tunisia also. Okay, the status quo. So why do we want to bank people, and why financial inclusion is important? Here are the pains when you are living in a country, let's say Tunisia, but also if you go further to the south and many other regions. It's very different from Europe, it's very different from the US. And now if you're living in Tunisia, you live in the north, even though it's a small country. If you want to send, I don't know, 100 dinars or 50, you have to actually put this money in a car and drive it from point A to point B, which doesn't make sense because everybody has a phone and everybody is connected somehow to the internet. So we still have this problem. We still have people lining in front of the banks because they don't have online banking and so on and so forth. And you have all of these pains. It's more expensive to not use a bank, and you have less access to markets and less access to money if you don't use banks, which makes sense. So it's paradoxical because in Tunisia we have a high internet coverage compared to the other countries, but also high mobile subscription. It's a young population, and we can experiment in there because people have a lot of needs. So just to give you an idea about how underdeveloped I would say the banking infrastructure is in Tunisia, I would say this is the total money supply in Tunisia, and we tweaked a bit. This is how much of this money is transferred on the internet. Because you don't have online banking, you don't have PayPal, banks are not connected to the internet, and you don't, like the usual user, don't have access to online banks, even though you are with a private bank in Tunisia. It seems odd, it's funny, but it's true. So our role as Vink is to provide the most understandable solution, but also secure. We focus on 3 different aspects. The first one, of course, is security, because it's very important that these transactions are secure, are safe for the people, so nobody gets hacked, nobody gets stolen, and so on and so forth. Accessibility is for the people who are 60 years old or 12 years old. They would have to know how to use money very easily, or have to understand or be educated to how to use it, so it has to be accessible. And remittances, it's important because when we talk about financial inclusion, remittances is money coming from one side to the other and not both sides. So micro remittances or remittances in Tunisia are more important than international transfers. This is the idea. So the solution that we provide, Vink gets in touch with banks, a bank XYZ, and we offer them a banking system, a payment system software. So we connect them to the merchants, to the regular customers, and B2B businesses. We go to the emerging markets where the banks don't have apps or they don't have an understanding of how the new technologies work, and we just offer them an app, a payment system. So, the engine of the payment system would be, for example, in this, for Tunisian Post, it would be Bitdinar. So it would be the engine which generates the coins, and we can customize this as the client customer wishes. So we understand cryptocurrencies, we know all the algorithms, consensus algorithms, but also many aspects. We have been trying many frameworks. For example, Bitdinar is a fork from Peercoin, but it's a bit customized. But we also use other frameworks we know about. Like there are many of them. We can talk about this later. The second thing is we also offer an app or a wallet. In this example, we use the colored coins protocol. The 6 zeros are not a mistake. This is so you can send up to 0.0001 Vincoin in this case. And the Bitdinar is its own blockchain. This one is using the Bitcoin blockchain, just to demonstrate where we can go and what we can do. And the third part, we didn't develop the API yet. So if you're familiar with financial regulation or banking, the PSD2 is a payment directive in European Union, but which also obliges the banks abroad to be compliant with this directive. So you have to give people the ability to pay online, and all the banks in Europe have to comply to this. So it's also would be useful for the developers and integrations and so on. Okay. So the business model, or how it works. So the bank XYZ, we give them the all technology stack, and they could connect to Alice, and they have the merchant integration, so they use it as a payment system as PayPal or anything, but it's based on a cryptocurrency system. And this is how far we are. So we signed our joint venture with La Poste Tunisienne last December. It's a very good step. The app wallet would be ready for May, because we have a competition with a local bank in Tunisia and with MIT. So if you guys look at us, we love you. Basically, we are somehow very close to our schedule. We're not far behind. How is it inclusive? If you're, I don't know, how many of you are familiar with Bitcoin or already used at least once Bitcoin? Okay, great. So if you don't use Coinbase, if you use something like Bread Wallet or something, you realize that you don't have to put your email or name and so on. You just download the app and then have your seed, and then you have a public key, and that's it. This is the idea about Bitcoin. You don't have to give your email, you don't have to give your identity and so on. We can do the same with any cryptocurrency, which is the goal. But when we work with La Poste, we have to comply. So we have KYC and AML, and you set up a step. But basically the idea is that as soon as you get your app, or as soon as you get your wallet and your address, you're able to use it. We can set up, let's say you have to verify with your ID, but just a feature that we add. We don't have to do it since the beginning. And if there is regulation, for example, in Tunisia, if it could help, we can help into improving the regulation or make it lighter for companies like us, so people can have more easily access to money. This is the idea. Okay. So once you have this wallet, Alice could very easily use an internet on a phone or on a computer to store the coins, buy and sell items, or just receive and send from Bob. This is what any cryptocurrency or payment system would do. Okay, like the business model that we're using with La Poste now is that we apply fees. This is how La Poste monetizes the system. So we put up fees there, and they can choose basically. So we can switch, we can kill some fees, we can add some fees, we can make it variable, it depends. But this is how they're gonna make money. And our product, so we want to crystallize what we are doing as Vink. Our first product is Bitdinar. It's a digital currency software, but we want it to be as a payment system, but as a primitive one. We don't want for now to say, okay, we created our cryptocurrency and this is not the goal. The goal is to create a payment system with the most relevant technology and say it's primitive enough so we can secure it. It's a function-driven software, so if any bank has any need, for example, if they want to add like smart contract features or escrows and so on, we can also do this. This is our expertise. And new monetary applications, so we also allow people to have a framework so they can integrate our payment systems, and they can see if if there is another startup which sees that there is a flow, they can fill this hole. We just provide the payment system and the connections to it. The people behind Vink. It's a quite international company, even though most of us are Tunisians. So, two Amins we have. Amin ibn Abdurrahman, he's based in Zurich, and he's the guy who knows everybody in Tunisia and in Switzerland and elsewhere. Amin Dries, we studied together. He's now a forex trader in Tunisia, but he has a broad experience in economics and banking. And myself, I basically worked in 4 banks. My father works in a bank. My brother works in a bank. I've been studying banking, finance, economics since the age of 18. So this is the idea. And now I also, as I come here very often, but I'm also familiar with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and so on and so forth. The developers, of course. So Skander, he's a developer in Tunis. Marco Argentieri, the Italians, it's not only Marco Argentieri, there's Marco and Simone and their team, and they're working on the back end and on the engine. Ozo is a security researcher, of course he doesn't want to have his picture, and he knows, so basically he's a pen tester. Yes. And the advisors, so the last time we went to see Mr. Shakshouk, the CEO of the Tunisian Poste, he told us that in 2011 they wanted to create a Tunisian Bitcoin because of these inclusive properties. And we were like, okay, we have Bitdinars actually, so it's a good solution. Daniel, Thomas, Claudio, and Tobias. To avoid name dropping, we also have supporters from the cryptocurrency community, but we cannot, I chose to not mention them here, but we have proved and validated our idea with researchers and the community. And we went far and as far as we could, so people could understand and know about our software. Yeah, we're self-funded, and but we can talk about this later. Any support or help is very welcome, of course. And that's it. It's banking in a frictionless manner. So Tunisia would be the gate because there are many countries and many markets which would have this need. And thank you.
All right, we have time for a few questions.
George, I might have missed that, but is this fungible with, like, can you exchange with Bitcoin or Bitdinar currency on its own?
Bitdinar is a so basically Bitdinar is a payment system provided by La Poste, but which is on par with the dinar. So if you use Bitdinar, it's exactly like you're using digital dinars or digital euros. You can switch if you want. We're working on this ability to convert. So hypothetically and even technically, you can switch with Bitcoins or any other cryptocurrency with a shapeshift integration. The purpose of it is that you can basically convert it.
But you're saying you're using the Bitcoin blockchain?
No, we're not using the Bitcoin blockchain, but we can connect in so many ways to the Bitcoin blockchain. For example, micro remittances with Bitwala, you can use the Bitcoin blockchain, but not convert your coins to Bitcoin. It's use it like a protocol or like Swift. You can use it in a technical way, like merge mining or any. There are other techniques like sidechains and so on, but we're not talking about this yet here.
All right.
But I understood you have what you are using internally, which distributed ledger technology you are using at your product.
We're using our own.
First question.
We are using our own, but we're still testing. We built our own blockchain, which is forked from Peercoin, but it's also it's just for prototyping. Because they have proof of stake instead of proof of work. But just for prototyping, it's not the deployment version.
But it means it's your own developed or customized blockchain?
It's forked. It's forked.
It's forked?
Yeah.
Customized, and which different kinds of consensus protocols you have implemented? Proof of work, proof of...
For Bitdinar, because it's forked from Bitcoin, it's proof of stake. But if we work with a bank or any other client who wants a different consensus for many reasons, we can provide this. Our job is to know all the consensus algorithms and all the techniques to optimize it for the client.
Normally, government has a regulation company or a regulation department, and which is a La Poste, Tunisia?
Yeah.
Is it own? Is it?
It's a national bank. So yeah, it's a national bank. Yeah. The CEO of La Poste is a.
Normally, a national bank don't need it's a regulation company or
Yes.
department.
Yes.
Is it the same in Tunisia?
No, it's actually La Poste allows us to be covered from high regulation or heavy regulation because we work within the framework of La Poste. So what they do, they called startups to come to innovate or bring solutions, and they tell you, if you work within our framework, you would not have to face regulation from the central bank. And this is exactly the framework with regulatory framework in which we are working.
Can you imagine that you make this as a blueprint for different African countries?
Sorry?
Can you imagine that what you have implemented or what you have think
Yes.
about, that you can make it as a blueprint in different
Yes.
African countries?
Yes, it's made to be scalable in the sense that financial inclusion would target all the emerging markets and would target all the banks who don't have payment systems. But of course, it's not only African countries, it can be virtually any country.
Okay, we do one last question. Somebody has one?
Sure, sorry.
Why are you sorry?
I have so many questions, but actually, like, let me just ask, where's the peer-to-peer there? So is everything running in the basement of La Poste?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, that is a clear honest answer. So.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, thanks so much. I'm sure he's over your mind if you have more questions. Yeah, thanks so much for coming. Look forward to seeing you next time.